Let me tell you about Chike Okonkwo, the son who became greater than his father, not in wealth, but in the currency that truly matters, love. His father, Chief Okonkwo, was one of Nigeria's wealthiest men. Oil, real estate, telecommunications, the chief's empire stretched across West Africa like the roots of an iroko tree. In Lagos, everyone knew the Okonkwo name. It opened doors, commanded respect, inspired fear. The chief was powerful, yes, but he was not loved. Power and love, you see, are rarely companions. Chike grew up in a mansion in Ikoyi, behind gates so high you couldn't see the sky unless you looked straight up. He had everything a boy could want: the best schools in Switzerland, cars before he could legally drive them, clothes shipped from Milan. But something happened to Chike that doesn't happen to most children born into that kind of wealth. He developed eyes that could see. It started when he was 12. His driver, Musa, an old Hausa man with hands like leather and a smile that could warm a room, took ill. Chike insisted on visiting him, and his father reluctantly agreed, thinking it a passing phase. They drove beyond the gleaming towers of Victoria Island, beyond the ordered streets of his childhood, into Makoko, the floating slum where Musa lived with his family. Chike saw children his age who had never owned a pair of shoes. He saw mothers cooking over open fires in shacks that swayed on stilts above polluted water. He saw his driver's entire family, 7 people, living in a space smaller than his bedroom closet. And something broke open inside him. Or perhaps something finally came alive. His father noticed the change immediately. "You're too soft," the chief would say, watching Chike give away his allowance to the gateman's children. "The world will eat you alive if you don't learn to be hard." But Chike just smiled that gentle smile of his and said nothing. He had learned early that arguing with his father was like arguing with a thunderstorm. When Chike turned 25, his father gave him what he thought would teach the boy about real power: control of one of the family's smaller companies, a construction firm worth about $50 million. "Make it grow," the chief commanded. "Show me you're worthy of the Okonkwo name." But Chike had different plans. Within the first month, he diverted funds meant for executive bonuses into a scholarship program for the children of his workers. His father's advisors were scandalized. "This is not how business is done," they protested. Chike just asked them a simple question: why not? He started small, or what seemed small to a billionaire's son. He rebuilt Musa's home in Makoko, not just a shack, but a real house with running water and electricity. Then he rebuilt the houses around it. Then he funded a school. People started talking. The chief heard the rumors and summoned his son. "You're giving away money like a fool," he thundered. "People will think you're weak. They'll take advantage of you." "Let them," Chike said quietly. "I have enough to share." "You're embarrassing the family name." "No, father. I'm honoring it. Just differently than you." And that's when the real work began. Chike discovered that in Ajegunle, one of Lagos's most crowded slums, children were dying from diseases that cost pennies to prevent. So he built a clinic. Not a fancy hospital with his name in gold letters. Just a clean, functioning clinic with good doctors who didn't ask for bribes. He paid the doctors well, very well, so they wouldn't need to. In Oshodi, he found young men standing idle on street corners, not because they were lazy, but because no one would give them a chance. So he started a training program: welding, electrical work, plumbing, carpentry. Real skills. Then he hired them for his construction company, paying fair wages. Those young men built the next clinic, and the next school, and they did it with pride because someone had finally believed in them. The people began to love him. Not the cautious respect they showed his father, not the fearful deference they gave to power, but real love. The kind that comes when someone sees your humanity and honors it. When Chike walked through the markets, grandmothers called out blessings. Children ran to him, not begging, but simply to be near him. Men who had nothing offered him what they could: a coconut, a prayer, their gratitude. His father watched all this with growing confusion and, though he'd never admit it, a sharp pain that felt uncomfortably like jealousy. "They love you more than they love me," the chief said one evening, staring into his whiskey. "They don't love you at all, father," Chike replied, not cruelly, but truthfully, they fear you. It's not the same thing. The breaking point came during the rains. Every year, flooding devastated the slums, washing away homes, drowning children, spreading disease. Every year, the government promised solutions. Every year, nothing changed. Chike spent $20 million, his entire discretionary budget for the year, on a drainage and housing project in Ajegunle. He worked alongside the laborers, his expensive clothes soaked with mud and sweat. People took videos on their phones, the billionaire's son in the trenches, literally. The videos went viral. The hashtag Chike the Goodheart trended for weeks. His father's business associates mocked him in their private clubs. The boy is simple, they said. Too much education, not enough sense. But the people? The people crowned him a king without a throne. When his father fell ill, a stroke that left the great Chike Okonkwo weakened and confined to a wheelchair, something unexpected happened. Thousands came to the mansion gates. Not to celebrate his downfall, though the chief had made many enemies. They came to pray for him, because they loved his son. Chike spent months caring for his father, running the empire, and continuing his work with the poor. And in those long nights, sitting beside his father's bed, the old man finally began to understand. "Why do you do it?" the chief asked one night, his voice smaller than Chike had ever heard it. "Because we have so much, father. And they have so little. What kind of man would I be if I didn't share? But the money, you could build your own empire." "I am building an empire, father. Just not the kind you taught me. I'm building one where people matter more than profits. Where success is measured in children who don't go to bed hungry, in mothers who don't bury their babies from preventable diseases, in young men who have hope for tomorrow." The chief was quiet for a long time. Then, in a voice that cracked with emotion he'd spent a lifetime suppressing, he said, "I built everything I have, and no one will mourn me when I'm gone. You've given everything away, and they'll weep for you like you're their own blood." "It's not too late, father," Chike said gently. "There's still time." But they both knew the chief was too old, too set in his ways, to change. Some trees grow too bent to straighten. Today, if you walk through Lagos, through Makoko, Ajegunle, Oshodi, Ajegunle, you'll see Chike's legacy everywhere. Not his name on buildings, because he never wanted that. But you'll see it in the schools full of laughing children, in the clinics saving lives, in the young men with trades and dignity, in the grandmothers who bless his name when they pray. They say he's given away more than $500 million now. His father's advisors warned he'd bankrupt himself. Instead, something miraculous happened. The more he gave, the more his businesses prospered. Workers who felt valued worked harder. Communities he helped became loyal customers. Young people he educated came back to work for him, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Love, it turns out, is not just a virtue. It's good business. Chike Okonkwo passed away 2 years ago. Thousands attended the funeral, but they came for Chike, to support him in his grief. The chief was buried with the full honors his wealth could buy, but it was Chike they wept for, Chike whose hand they wanted to hold. And Chike? He continues the work. Every morning, he wakes up not in the Ikoyi mansion, he sold that and moved to a modest home in Lekki, but with a purpose bigger than himself. He has proven what his father never understood. That you can inherit a fortune, but you must earn love. That power can command obedience, but only compassion commands the heart. That the truest measure of a man is not what he accumulates, but what he gives away. The people loved Chike Okonkwo's son more than they ever loved the chief himself. Not because Chike was perfect, he wasn't. Not because he had all the answers, he didn't. But because when he looked at the poor, he saw himself. When he saw suffering, he felt it as his own. And when he had the power to help, he did. In a country where the rich build higher walls and the poor grow more desperate, Chike Okonkwo tore down walls and built bridges instead. That, my friend, is a legacy worth more than all the oil wells in the Niger Delta. That is the story of the son who surpassed his father, not by being richer, but by being richer in heart.